All right. So we saw that the Indian of Ava al Pitavadas is Muchuse and Mugel and Beklau. Those are Klau that we're going to meet with Kama Piomim in the Hemshech of the Piyah that are oil which is Mislabish, Mamish, and a Kli. Meaning oil a Shaykh Lekli, Ve'ike Giluya is alidei Kli. Then in Yoni is he's Mugbal B'lefi a Kli. And that is Slabshas is Poil Bola Atzmias in that oil that if it's Meya Michutz Lekli, it's only Meya, even from Ha'ora Lefi Etzim Mahusay. Because the Kli is now a whole Indian of interaction between it and the Kli. And that's what we see. The Kli is Makbil, Kli is Machaseh, with all sorts of different Lashenas that we find Beneged to Kalim. So that oil which is Meya Michutz Lekli is only Ha'ora. And before we talk about the Chitanius HaKli. And in the Pnimius HaKli it's not shaykh anyway to Gilui Michutz Lekli Legamre. You do a move in Bahabi Mekemus Beneged to the whole Hamshocha Vatzilas in Biyah only with the Ha'ora Bilvad V'chulu. Since this Ava Al Pitan Vadas is an Ava which is Yerdum Mislabish in the Koiches and in the Midrash Belev, and they are Koiches, and the Kli of that is the Indian Leiv, the Leiv Agashmi of the Odom. Avamil is a Hagbola, how much it can express itself, and therefore we saw it's only Ais Pashtas, and therefore it doesn't have Kur to be, as they call it now. I saw the day I was driving and I saw a big notice up, Ma'apchanim, Machapsim Ma'apchanim or something. It's they know what Ma'apchanim over here is, pink to say Boidom. Somebody breaks through the normal Hagbolas and he gets something really powerful through. So oil which is Malubish and a Kli, by definition, not able to do that. And therefore, what is Nimshach is a Ha'or. And therefore, the effect of that Av, which is Bo B'Teich Klei Haleiv, it is only Mugbo, what it can be poil in the autumn, B'derech Ha'or Bilvat. Oh, but the Yinif Rusa de Liebe, the Yinif Rusa de Liebe, Rusa is Meloshen Rotzen. That's the Aramic word for Rotzen. And we're going to see here now a whole view in the Indian of Rotzen, that Rotzen is not like that. Rotzen, on the contrary, is able to be poiled freely on the Kalim and make them, as you might call, move to its tune. In other words, it brings the Kalim that they should be misbattle legamri to it, being as it is a bilti mugbo be'etem mohusay. It's not limited, and it's not even mishchasha'iv with the hagbolas of Kalim. On the contrary, it is koivesh and moishel of those hagbolas. Therefore, that's what the Rebbe means to say that it's an av bilti mugbelet. Dahainu, what does that mean? She'eino niknas toik halev, like we saw in the previous Ava, that she niknas toik halev. Here is an eino niknas toik halev, adarabba, hu oidef alalev umakifo. So that wasn't oidef al halev, umakifo. Well, that's interesting, because the word oidef means like nowadays you call change, in other words, what's left over almost of a certain yin, and it's called adifus, or oidef. So that what the Rebbe says, it's oidef alalev umakifa. Well, that would tend to indicate that there is a certain amshocha, but there are pnimis also. No, it's so powerful that it's oidef alalev, it's kilu godesh et alev, and it's also what you might call nishtapeich michutz lalev, and then it's even got the power to be makif. In other words, it was mera the ava is miskala even more. It's able to be makif is kolakli. Amamira, the lashon oidef is very interesting, which tends to indicate ulai b'derech efsher. We can say that since of course this comes through in pnimi in the nefesh, through a koyah pnimi, what does it mean, and the seichel. And then we have to say that Sof it has a certain shefa which is nimshach also in the kli, but Azazach would be mitzad etzem toichnoi and etzem inyonei. It's kilu nishtapik me'akli. It's not mugbal or contained completely in the kli, but it pours out of the kli, and then the more it gains its own momentum, as you might say, it's makiv the whole kli. And therefore, it follows that and therefore he doesn't feel fulfilled from their ma'ava. He's always in a state of unrest, and he always feels that there's lamaila and beyond and beyond. If the ava is in the form of his butlers, not in and of self fulfillment, or on the contrary, a continuous feeling of bittul to that which is still not grasped, and that's the whole inyan of this type of his bonaness, the awareness that you're not able to grasp. What does it even asogas hashlila? And ever said the Rebbe comes to say this is another type of ava where it's a ständiger tzimoyen. It's in other words, it's an ava which is a tzimoyen, not that's a little bit al derech reading from what's moving in Perek Zayin, in Tanya Perek Shvi, in Tanya Dot Al Terebe Mavaye. That there's an ava which is not really an ava in the real sense. It's a tzimoyen. It's a bren, as I mean, when he goes out completely beyond all the koiches. Over there he means kora peredike, which has got even bekoiche lahafik, it's a agimul klippus atameis v'chulu. That's what he means the etzem mamish. Aber auch upon him ein mizeh, what he means here, that this is a tnua of an ava which is not, it's not the feeling of ava, no, it's the feeling of longing and tzimoyen. Because b'derech klal, ava's got itself two inyanim, a certain longing, a certain tzimoyen for the minyan, and then there's the inyan of the, what you might call the fulfillment of the hasogas, or the shachtas, with the inyan and the taking the inyan, li'atzmei, that's what you might call the, like he says, the rivui of the tzimoyen. In other words, that's the inyan ava, that's the mitis ava. Because Ava takes two sides and saying for the shachtas. But where it's cured, the what you might call a matorah, the Ava is always beyond him, then he's always shoyef to a inyan which he can't really reach, BMS. And remember, he's in a continuous state of tzimoyen. Erev said the Rebbe, Harizeh poel ala tivias, shetizbatel be'etzem mohusai, עד שיוכל להיספק על ידי זה. כך לקבלו in a second. So he says that this is poil, koidem kol, that's a poil in the tibias of the mensch. In other words, a kol way that you're coming to the mensch and you're filling up his keli, as you might say, you're pouring out his keli and then you're filling it up with a dover ha-nechmad, v'ha-nilzo, etzloi. And he feels good and he feels well, fulfilled, and he feels that there's a tremendous expression of his koiches and his life, everything is good, and all is tei v'arum and arum, and therefore the tibius to a certain extent cashes in on that, and the tibius says, I'm also prepared to be a little bit more higher and a bit more barabatish, of a sokoso. The tibius is really, in a way, benefiting from dem ganzen tnua. However, he said, when you're continuously reaching out of yourself, and you know that your whole inyan is not fulfilled, and you're in a state of tzimoyen, el dorish odlo, hisakta, then you leave the tibius behind. He sort of feels completely, how do you call it, hungered, because you're not giving him anything. You're just telling him, listen, man, we're going to go higher and higher and higher. As if it's higher and higher, there's not going to remain anything for breakfast, as you might say. The fellow is Einochanami, he becomes, as you might call, he becomes, to use the expression in Yiddish, oisgedart. Like you thin him out from his ispashtas. However, said the Rebbe, you can, if you take away the, what you might call the shumnaniyut, how do you call it, the shumnoniyus of the TV, so then he said, it could be that he might even be able to alter me'achzori l'rachmoni or mitachlis ha'gazes l'tachlis ha'shiflus. Now, here when we say gases, we don't mean grobkeit, in the normal sense. Ki gorbkeit mad chashmeipo. We're talking here about people already up into madrigas and aveda. Now gases is the inner from thickness. In other words, the feeling of the self. In other words, gases is more the inner of a how do you call it, a dika metzias, feeling of the self. And my memory said he can be mishapig, mitachlis agases, letachlis a shiflis, a can wear a bottle dika. He can mamish become bottle in his whole attitude to inyonim, both legabi elakus, kamuvan, and legabi people around him and beklal in the inyan and Kumavur is brought down in the Maimonim from the Frierdiker Rebbe, and Oid Mekayim is that we see that one of the Dvorim Koshim Lisboil is dafke when you have people that like Erkom Eino Kokach Al Tadanailo of mitzad the gases, they stuppen sich herum, and they've always got something to say. If it would be better maybe if they were monea, bissel v'chulu. And those are the Deutsch gases, and that comes from heder beetle of the TV. It comes to like filling the TV. In other words, whatever he's had to do with kedusha, whatever, it's always been his way. And so I feel I'm a chassid, and I'm a ganzen Yerushalayim, and I'm I've got all the necessaries, and people give me a yashikoyach, and I've got my name in the Kwachapad, and maybe even into the base Mashiach, and noch so geplatte, and tata. En bij mij, lama lo, in bij mij werd van dem gewoon in het land, een van a steckenisch in Yonim, which it would be better not. You understand? Reinstecken in solche Erte would be better loy. In Bamira, that's een van gases. En Bamira is wel tegen een van Pirot Levove, it didn't need to be, Malachat Chila, niet gedoofd zijn. Malachat Chila. And remember, the answer is shiftless. Shiftless at the touch. Beetle, opgeworfen. The Rav is going to say, Mamish, he's going to say it later. Opgeworfenkeit. Mamish, that was. Thrown down, you throw yourself down on the country. You cast yourself down into the much lower echelons of being anything at all. And then you function in a much better way, and you're much more active with people, and everything is much more desirable. However, we notice that here it's interesting. We're talking a little about Ava LaKodesh Baruch. We're talking about Avas Hashem and Ava in Elakus, Matiali in Yonim. And all of a sudden he says that so he says that you'll be oisik, and you'll go higher in that Ava. It could be you might think it could be I from beetle I might some sort of amazing beetle telekus. He said no, it could be that he might be Masapich from an Achzori to a Rachmoni. In other words, that the Pu'ula for these inyonim at the beginning is in inyonim Tiviyim graded. And therefore he said that Tiviyus, he means mamish the Teva of the Odom, Kipshute, that at the beginning, if you really want to be misasik with your Teva and be mishtana from one side of a Teva to another Inyan, Legamri, then you have to be oisik in Dvarim Nailim. You can't just walk around saying, because you just slip back. The only way to really be mishtana in Dvarim Pshutim is to be fanuman with a higher inyan. And maybe it's al derech. I mean, but there are efshe shebe efshe. It's al derech with the old Siddish quip. It's an old Siddish quip that a oirach, an oirach kommt auf Hawaii, zeter amayol. I say something in Yiddish. A guest comes for just a short while, but he sees a mile. He sees, it's not good in the house because he's a guest. He's an observant person, but he's not involved. He's not karuch how do you call it, reingeschleppt in the ganze Linien, and he's not nogea bedover. Therefore, he just sees and he can tell you, why don't you fix this? This would be a good age. Pick to see if she went, mit Yisrael, Milan of Godel. yeah, me Yisrael, yeah, he came to Moshe Rabbeinu, and immediately on the spot he gave Moshe Rabbeinu a meandika. Yeah, I just come here. I Moshe Rabbeinu is Moshe Rabbeinu, because I guessed, you know, a guest kommt auf a Weile, set a mile. When you go up into higher inyonim, then you become like a guest, like up your own self, and you can see where you really, what is really the problem. And maybe you look down a little bit on yourself and say, what's going on? I'm really, verkrochen. What's he doing? Oh, but the amazing thing that the Rebbe said in the previous part, that could be toikevtika avos Hashem, but that you took that to yourself. You got avos Hashem, but you're still the same. Yeah, mitzad your TVs, you're still the same. It's kosher l'tayah, mamish exactly the same. But ain't shinui mahusi. And Mamela Kuntais says the Rebbe that the first thing that this is poyo, that the mention is mamish in his TVUs and his normal, natural way of functioning. It could be this is a beauty nisbal. He's an aksori, he's a cruel person. Nishka dakistik made a filtnish, what nishka monosap people, and they're going to do it. That is mashana him, and that has an effect on him, that he can be misapik from an aksori to a arachmoni. He can be good mamish pink the hefer, mitachlas agasas letachlas a shiflus. Instead of being and thinking he's a ganze rashki bahag, the whole world come to my yashakoyach and everything, and plainly says something. No, you don't. I don't agree with this. Remember, the whole of the ganze Chabad has to agree with him that he's right, because he doesn't agree with plainly the da sich oft on ganzen articles in the papers and mit seinen Narrichkeiten und all of a sudden he realizes that Gewalt, loves up, let's get back to the MS, let me get zurück, because who am I beklagen? Das ist eine von Schiflers. We know that here Dafki the Loshen Schiflers. The Rebbe doesn't say beetle, tachas a gazel, tachas a beetle. Dafki the word Schiflers. Now, but there are cloud, Schiflers is not a thing which considers praises a huge amount. Because Schiflers, I'm just a chauffeur, who am I, there's even criticism of that sometimes. But sometimes you got to start all over again. If you're a gas, then the only way to start over again, you're going to become a chauffeur. Once you're a chauffeur, then you can build mechodas. And therefore you've got to become a chauffeur. Like I told you, the Meister was given with, this already, Hoige Madreges, Milano, Li Saru Bekaile Dvorim. We said, Sipo, the world, the Telving, Reb Mendele Horadog, Reb Mendele Vitebske. And he was good, in Yesh Laharik Bezev, Ein Lashaya Lataya, the Gadlus, and Mendele Vitebske. And he was only a young man. He passed away when he was about 50 or something. Mendele Vitebske. And the whole world was mamish bottled for him. He was somebody no gesehen, they just became bottled to him. Piddly plates on the mouth. Anyway, they say that he used to sign himself a Shofel BMS. That's what I meant. He used to write himself a Shofel BMS, and then because he was tremendously in from Beetle, that he was moyandik. I know he was unbelievable. So he used to write a Shofel BMS. So one of seine Mukusharim, he saw that. Rabbi schreibt es, he's worked on the middle of Shiflers a lot. So he also used to write a Shofel BMS. One of the more leading members of the entourage, you might say, he saw this and he mentioned to the Mendele Vitebske. I said, why was that? Hospital, does. So the Mendele Vitebske said, if you have a minute, tell him to step in. So I come and say, he asked him, what's it? So said, I saw, the Rebbe schreibt to say, we're all working on the Midas HaShiflers, with the Rebbe will, so I thought that, it's a school over the Rebbe tut to say, so Mendele said, give a cook. He said, you have to realize, Berachmanis Kemur, nicht Tkifet. He said, you have to realize that du bist be'emes ha'shofel. Du bist be'emes ha'shofel. And he said, ha'shofel be'emes is an anderes. That's what Rabbi told him. He went away, he had his ticket. He said, gelernt zijn ticket. You know what that means here. If you're old by Tachlis Hakassis, then you got to realize that the only way out is to be Emes HaShofel. You got to be an Emes HaShofel, not a Shofel be Emes. In other words, there's got to be the Indian from Emes HaShifles. Ukahai Gavna, and similar to this. Yeah. In other words, it begins with very simple but tremendously marked alterations in the tedious makeup for the man. And where's he been up to now? He left a ganze Leben. He didn't realize he's a cruel man. He didn't realize. Now he begins to, and he can be Mishana Mea Kotzer La Kotzer for wars, because this is a Koyach Elyon which is not reckoning with the Hagbolas of the Kli. It's a in Michutz La Kelim Upoel Aleim, as we'll see a little bit more. Ukahai Gavna, and similar to this type of Indian, Mipnai Shemizbatlu Mishtana Be'etzem Mahusay. In other words, that Rusa de Liebe doesn't just leave you satisfied, no, Rusa de Liebe, that he called brecht the mensch in a good neuven. It breaks him, says Amanas Livnei. But derech agav, I mean, just be klolles ainen, das ist eine von den Jahren von Ner Chaneke. Was ist die von Ner Chaneke? The Davke Achut, Davke, the famous beer from the Rebbe Rayat, that mezuzah worked from here inwards. Yeah, the mezuzah stayed up the tip, but it works inward. It's for the house, and it's pour in the house. And the Ner Chaneke, pit verkehrt. The Ner Chaneke is out there, but it's in order to go that way. It's in order to get out to the chutz. Kol inyoni is lahoyer as a chutz from the ganze bier kiyatur mufursa. Yeah, answer is. So one of the beauty in that is that the inyan for Ner Chaneke is that it breaks the chutz. That's meya in the chutz in a oiv of a memshola or bittel. It's mavattel the whole inyan of the chutz. On mamira, it can even be mahapir the chutz. Sof kotsof, what is the inyan from kalye rigla the Talmudoi? And it's more in the Drushim from the Rebbe Nishmos Yaden that kalye rigla the Talmudoi at the Taich, that the Talmudoi they become not only kalye from Russian bittel, but they become from Russian klois hanefesh, that they themselves nesapik be'etzem minyono, and they want to be bottled telekus, and they shreyen, we want Moshiach now. I feel that the Moeldim from the Talmudoi. They state in Drushim Chassidut. Mamira, it's a similar type of inyan that the Ner Chaneke is meyer. And Mamira, the Ner Chaneke is kalicht. It's not a light. It's a koyach otzum. What ein lanu shem acher ela to call it oyer. Or we told inyan is it's mavatel and mahaper the choisha. The fast nicht kein Licht. Therefore, ein lanu rishus licht. Lishtam, you can't have any know of him. You can't sit and be nana from the oil of the Ner Chaneke. It doesn't nishka hanoa dike oil. It's not, and therefore it's not a lie. I mean, no, was ob ich Lichtigkeit, I should have a know of him. Aber im ein lano rishus lishtam ish boyen, and we was for a lichted it. Elamai, it's not a licht. Its whole inyan is to be mavatel and mavatish, and to brechen the linie van Heipach licht. יש להרי בזה, auch upon him in Harikot in Zois Chaneke, the Hemshech auch upon him from Zois Chaneke. It's good that we haven't mentioned that. It happened to come up in Amma, and it's an amazing thing. A bit further down here, he brings a maimah, that's what we're supposed to be holding. I mean, I'm supposed to learn quickly, and we should get down this far. But you have to forgive me that that's my way. What can I do? If we were learned properly the way we should be, then we'll get down to mean v'ner Chanukah Mishmoel. You know, we've got it both ways. Now, I somehow or another managed to get onto a Eid v'ner Chanukah, even though I'm not going to get that far based on Shabbat. It doesn't appear to me that in the Shir I'll get that far. But nonetheless, when I was preparing the Shir, I got that far. The ner Chanukah Mishmoel, mezuzah miyamin. You know, we had to talk about the Eid v'ner Chanukah, one way or another. En dat is een idee van zo'n Chanukah. Nou, ik vraag bij dir, dat is not as God gepraat is. Ja? The Lord is God gepraat. And the interesting thing was that I thought we were holding a little bit further until I thought that we weren't. And so I been geschwommen, almost to the beginning when I looked in the whole pattern. That's what I hit. So I thought, Hemshep to say Chanukah, and he brings that it's in from bittel in the whole inyan of the Neroim, a bittel in mahus on Neroim, mamish or die welt. Bringt dat. Hij gaf hem mipnei shemisbatel umishtana be'etzem mahusa. Amamira be'etzem mahusa means that it's poured in the, as they say, in the kishkits. Yeah, deep inside, that he's unable to be oimed meneged, and he has to give in and be different than he was. So now the Rebbe brings a very interesting Indian from what you might call autonomy almost. Begufa Adam, Hari, Lamaila mea parsa, Hein kol koiches hanailim, Kemoy amoichin shebereish v'amil. Sheba lay. In other words, at Kemoy Lamaila there's parsois between the main areas of Gilui. For example, you have a parsa between Keser and Chochma. And then you have a parsa between Lamaila Mia Keser and Arich, Chochma Stimor, you have all these different parsois. And between Malchus Datzilas and Bria, you have a parsa. All these different parsois. So a parsa is a very amazing musag. The same kind of Mochen Mahari, but it's also mavur in the Drushi Mechanika. It's also in Torah, the Indian from parsa. Because in the Sefer Torah, it comes up on more than one or two occasions, the whole Indian. However, what is the parsa by a mensch? What are a parsa? So, b'derech klal, that's what we call the chotzer hakoved, which is like a sort of a membrane that's connected with the how do you call it, the liver.
Diaphragm. Diaphragm.
Where?
Diaphragm.
Yeah, diaphragm. Oh, there's a whole thing called a diaphragm, and that's connected with the and that's like a chlolistic hevdil between the, what you might call the upper realm of the mensch and the lower realm of the Adam. That's what we mean here. That's called the Chotzer HaKoved. It's called in Lashon HaChassidus, and it's got a certain pu'ula, what it unites those two worlds and passes in yonim one to the other. It's not just purely a fence, which is mavdil. That wouldn't be fair to the parsa at all. Although on the other hand, it does act as a sort of a general dividing line in the mahus sug of the koiches which are beyond it or underneath it. So therefore he says that the parsa, the maila, is all the koiches, the elevated, and what you might call more appropriate koiches, to a mensch. Kemoy amoichin shebereish v'amida shebelei. In other words, that even the midas alamayla mea parsa kisokosov, the midas by a mensch are also supposed to be matim to the inyan amoichin and lefi inyan amoichin. They're all like one mareches, one mixture, all of themselves together. Ubedera klal, said the Rebbe, achayes shebelei v'reya. Now the reya is the lungs. Hareze ike pnimius achayes. Now that's a very interesting statement. That the chayes that there is in the heart and the reya, the lungs, They are the Ike Pnimius, Hachayas. Now we have to understand, what does he mean by that expression, the Ikar Pnimius Hachayas? Because look, you can tell that the Ike, he just said that you got the Ine from Moichin, and Moichin Shibarosh, they're a long way from the Leiv and the Reya. I mean, they're up in the Rosh, and in the Moichin. Why do they say the Ike Pnimius Hachayas? So the Inyan is that, albeit the Moyach, Inyan is, we're in Tanya in Perek Nun, and in Perek Nun Aleph, the Moichin, not Perek Nun Aleph, I meant, is the Moichin are tremendously kloli, and they have a certain memshola over the whole body, and all the koyachas are klulim somehow or another in the Moyach. Everything one way or another goes back to that tremendous switchboard or tremendous computer gear in the Moyach. Everything is kil niklau or mushrash in the Moyach. But you can't really say that the Moyach is the Ike Pnimius Achayas of the mensch. Pnimius means that which is mislabish in Kelim, and that which is Machaya the Kelim, and Mamera to that Machaya the whole union of the goof, and all the functioning of the bench, biz, the Koyches Achitonium, Mamish like Koychat Tnua, and the Alinyonim, all of that is Tolui in the Leiv, and interestingly enough, in the Reya. Not only just the Leiv, but also the lungs. In other words, that the Indian of the Leiv, like the Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya Dot in Perek Tesayin, that the Leiv is Chumri Kasha'ei Vorim. The Leiv has got in himself a similarity and a demoyen to all the other koichas, that he's also a physical and almost a material Indian, but he's got milas and nilas from his gois, yachadim zeh. And so the Moyach is taki the Ike Mamutza with all the Inyanim of the Vorim, because he is like them. Yeah? And the Moyach, you can't say that the Moyach is Chumri. You can say that the Moyach has become a Gusham. The mentions, he's lost his Edelkeit and he can't be bothered with a deep Pasoga or Chweisvos. But you can't say that the Moyach is Chumri. The Moyach is, Mamish had called physical material shtick. However, the Leiv, Be'etchem Minyone, is a Chumri. But together with that, it's got the ability to have koiches nailim, and therefore the Leiv is able to be mishtaber with all the other Evorim and feed them. Because if you want to feed somebody, you've got to give him, you've got to be bedimyon elov, you've got to have the same square that he needs, and therefore you can feed. And therefore, physical kiyum and the slabshus in the Evorim per se, well, that's only the Leiv. Yeah. And therefore it goes with the dam, because the dam is the same meaning, and he's a chumri, and he's mamish shaykh to the chumri is of Aful Pekeni. He carries in himself high inyanim, the adium and all those inyanim which are mavur barichas that go with the dam together. So what's this all of a sudden here, the Reya? Because we see that together with, first of all, there's a pele reporting says that the Reya is near the heart, they're somewhat near the heart, the lungs. And they have a certain Indian that they sort of expand and they go in and out. Well, that's like a sort of a covering and cooling effect on the Leiv. That's the ability of what you might call cooling down the Leiv, because the Leiv, being as it is a Indian from Choim and Dam, therefore the Leiv can become hot. And as it's written in the Torah, sitting by Aina with these really one really in cars, Ashteki Yecham Levovoi. His heart gets really hot, and then you got to be very careful. It can come to Inyonim Bilti Rutuim Lagamre. And if we see that the heart gets hot, and the Reya has an effect that it sort of choifef al Leiv, and what you might call literally cools down the union of the Leiv. Over Yeshlem, Bepashtas, Chutz Mizeh, Bepashtas to what we are concerned with here, we see that the Leiv is connected with the union of the breathing more than what the heart is, even though the heart is also very shy to the union of the breathing. The Kli of the Neshima Mamish is the Leiv. Yeah. And that passes on the I'm sorry, the Reya. I meant to say the Reya. The lungs. And therefore, the etzem taking in of the air and the passing of it round and the giving out in order to enable another passage and so on, well, that functions through the raya. So we could say that the raya gives in to the leiv another inyan which is called in Siddur the ruach hachayim. Now it's put down in Siddur Loshen that there's chayis and there's ruach hachayim. In other words, the chayis is the etzem needs and a purely blood relationship of all the different evorim, and they need the blood that brings them all sorts of inyanim. But then there's a certain inyan which is called ruach hachayim, which passes in the blood. But that makes the mensch behemoth, lebedik and delicate, and it adds to all of his ability of all the different limbs to reach their emissary function and their emissary tachlis. What they're really supposed to be doing. Huh? Huh?
In Tanya it's called the luz.
Luj?
The luz. In Tanya, the cycle of the blood in the...
Yeah. That's called the, I don't know what word you're referring to there, didn't quite catch it. But the inyan for Ruach HaChaim is a higher Ruchnis dike inyan. It's more shot to Ruchnias than it is to the Gashmias. In other words, we see that each Eva needs a certain Ashpur Gashmias, and there can be what you might call a Gesunter Eva. I feel by a mentor, he doesn't have any particular interest in anything much, except maybe kicking footballs around or and then there's an inyan of a Ruach HaChaim, but there's all sorts of other Sachen which go into the Avery, and they sort of bring with them a message and an expression and an ability to relate to all sorts of inyanim, Ruchnim, Koilo Dinim, van Avos Chaverim, V'chule, all sorts of inyanim. Well, that's called the Ruach HaChaim. Yesh lema that's also from the rayal. That comes be'ika, and that's introduced into the blood be'ika through the intake of the rayal. And therefore the rayal is very important in the whole inyan of the chayas pnimius. He's like mashlim, what you might call the alam matachlistic uftu of the chayas. So it should be inyan from delicacy. And like you see sometimes that even in little creatures, you can see that sometimes they're just existing, and then other times all of a sudden they light up and they're all these amazing little things are functioning. The same with the human, sometimes, for example, when he's asleep, and then later you see these amazing delicate expressions, and the Indian from Dibur, and I feel in Maisa, men can talk, and all sorts of. You know about that. In Maisa, there's Indian from Dibur. What they call it, body language. All that is the Ruach HaChaim. Says the Rebbe, there's the inyan from the Laiv and there's the inyan from the Reil. There's the Ike Pnimius HaChaim. The Moichin is a Makif Tikizah. And ultimately speaking, that Makif can be Poel in all sorts of ways. But it's Makif. Like we see. How do you say it? He's got a lot of good thoughts, He means good, It's at the moyach, he's got gewaldig inyanim. It's not necessarily pnimius hachayas. Ulamata me'aparse, hein Avery hamoze. Hadikot, the limbs of the food intake, Hadikot Avery hamoze. Shehein betachlis hagasos. They're very, very grubber and self-emphasized entities. V'nimtzu bohem pseilus v'afilu the inyan von Eipach hanochi legamri the inyan von Tzoya. In other words, do we see then that parsa has an ability to cause a whole bira. It's not just a dova hamavdil, and all the inyanim that enter through the higher aspect of the body are dealt with by that chotzer and makes a whole bira, and it tends, the lower main organs tend to be more like organs that absorb things which ultimately their purpose is to mostly go out. For example, the liver deals a lot with, even though it does feed back, and the same with the kidneys and the other organs which got to do with the passage of the Torah, etc. All those in Yonim Sof Kosov is an inyan to do a birur gas, which is ultimately for the inyan of
elimination.
Its departure from the go.
Elimination.
Yeah. And therefore we have a special bracha, Asher Yotor, which Asher Yiposeach Mehem or Yisosei Mechad Mehem, Chmonin and Tlan. Because there has to be that inyan from Pesich. That's connected with the lower Evodim. So that was it. We see in the Mensch, there's a tremendous, how do you call it, Hebdel Bein Zeller, Bein Zeller Zeh. And we're going to see that nonetheless, there can be an interrelation between them, not Kashmirs. No, I feel in there can be an interrelation between them. וזהו מפני שהכוח שבמוח ולאי ואיבר הנשימו, what that's the real, הן בבחינת תפיסה והסלבשת, so what does he mean, זהו מפני? What is he trying to be masbir? זהו מפני is on a sinus tar. What is bothering us? That here we see l'chora, we see that dimension is like he's like two worlds. He's like what you might call a dichotomy. Yeah. The upper part of him is gewaldig, and the lower part not so good. Yeah, I mean, it's very important. It's tremendously important, but it's another world altogether. And therefore, it's one on the famous thing over there. Was it in the Gemara Masechta Sanhedrin? There was this min that he said to, he said to Rav Gamliel, I think he said it was, that there's two sections of the mensch, like two halves of him, and he said the upper part of him is shaykh to Hurimin, but Hurimin was a name in those days for the Avish. They used to call, the Goyim used to call the Avish Hurimin, and the lower part of him is shaykh to Hurimiz, but Hurimiz was the name of an Aveda. So he wanted to say that the mensch is two. One part of him belongs to the Avish, the other part of him belongs to somebody else. So he answered him, the famous tshuva was to be him. So he says, Heiki. So he said to him, Heichi Shovik Hurimiz lo Hurimin lahavir mayim bigvulei. He said, how come that Hurimiz allows Hurimin to pour water through his area? In other words, if you take him water through the mouth, it goes first of all into this part. But eventually, particularly if you're fasting and you drink more salt water, it just goes more straight through. Excuse me for the rather earthy expression. So what happens here is that it really goes into the top part. That's Hulamin, that's the Eibishter. Yeah, and then this Hulamiz, he's the one down there that's in charge. So he said, how does he let the Hulamin take water through his property? Okay, that's kind of the design. And unfortunately nowadays we have Yonim Ma'ains saying kind of mochim laharik v'dvorim ha'mafhilim v'mitzayirim v'chuli v'chuli v'chuli. So therefore, said the Rebbe, what is it? Why is there such a dichotomy? He said, "V'zeu mipnei sha'koicha shebemoyach v'olei ve'even hashim ein b'chinas tfisa v'slapshus ba'kelim shalem." So the kasha is l'chora, the being is they are such high things, and these other things are such poshet, grobbing Sachen. L'chora, these ones up there should have a whole memshala gemura, and they should be in charge of these other. Why should there be like two areas, and they don't really? There's no real relation one to the other until we call it a hotakov and a parasa. It's like a separating influence. He said, look, they should be the ganze Balawa Batim, they should run everything. And he said, no, the reason that it's like that there's really a dichotomy, because he said that those koyachas b'moyach u'balai v'eve anashima ein b'chinas tfis v'slabis b'kelim shalahem. They malubish in kelim. If you're malubish in a kli, then you've got to do things the way your kli allows you. In other words, you might have a lot of things that you could say, but since you're inside a kli, and he's a kosher kli, and he's your kli, then you've got to do it his way. You can't get outside what your kli tells you. However, he says, since there is slopes became Shaleim, Vainam Mishpashtim Lechutz Me'akelim Shaleim, Rak ha'or levad. They does go outside the kli, but only ha'or, okay, Einam Poilim Be'avorim Lis Battle Be'etzem Mahusam Legabi HaKoyches HaPnimim. However, the Koyches Pnimim, like the Midas and the Moichin and the other good Inyonim, they can't be poil in all these Avorim. Agasim v'apshutim yoter, because what is going down to them is only bilvad, because it's limited by the kelim. In other words, if the keli closes over and says, the ike inyam, what you have is inside for us, it's for us. You want to be poil michutz la'atzmecha? Okay, only bilvad, only a door which is a hispashtas, not a mahus. Only a hispashtas of another mahus. He said, okay, in a poilim bevorim lis battle be'etzem mahusam legabi koyches hapnimim. He said, therefore, the koyches agasim and the Averim agasim are not misbatil to him. If they were misbatil completely, then you could do things with them. All they do is they say, look, if these koyches elyonim will talk enough, then we will have a certain agreement between us that will be makabel from them. We should become different, and we should be mishtana and our moves. They got their kelim, and their kelim tell them what to do. So how they come to us. So the Rebbe gives a dogma. We'll see about that in the coming. I'm sorry we only learn a few lines, but this is very reich in yonim. It's we do find sometimes a certain pu'ula. And the Rebbe brings a dogma that some people are able, beribuya shkida, with the moichin, they can cause the koyches ha'ikul to not to function so much. Not to not function at all, but not to be function so much. But it's not a pool in the etzem mahus, it's only like a mania. And then later, when that'll be let down, then they'll come back to their normal. That's what the Rebbe once spoke. The Rebbe to more get from them.
So by the Rebbe?
Yeah. For bring hours. Yeah. And, but Mechila, there was never any suggestion that Rebbe go anywhere. Never to go to the toilet. I mean, sometimes in the old days, it'd be hours, 8-9 hours. It's had the Kentana for bringing Atsho, Simchas Torah, Moitzah Simchas Torah. 8 hours. No problem. They could bring from about 7 all the way through 3 in the morning. No. Never any sign of anything. No concern about any inyan. Just then the kosher bracha after that. And then you had all these unfortunate people who try to get to the in the middle of a fabrenga. What do you do? I was watching. You have to duck out to the toilet. So given a ganz in the sukia for dimension of so everyone spoke about it. And he said that you can be monea. Certainly you can be monea. The ishpashtas of the koyches ha'ikul. Yeah, the state of Polish is fine. I once saw it in a sefer of the Shinova. He was the son of the Divrei Chaim, Shinova, sons. He writes that Ali Day the mentions Mamikis Atzmi be non limud. He can be monea as the koyches ha'ikul and all those inyanim. Koyches ha'dechio will stop for a time. And when he lets them go, then they'll start up again. The Rebbe's point is that's it's an important thing, but it doesn't change them be'etzem mahuzim. They still stay what they are. They're just sort of holding back for a while. They're not functioning with the ganze normal ball bearings of a soccer software. I mean, any time the Rebbe took hours, to give kosher bracha. I mean, just give him shoyes. And no more for bringing Shabbos, The Rebbe came down 1:30, and in the summer he would finish at 5 in the afternoon, 5:30, 5:45. I mean, that's a solid 4.5 hours. and the Rabbi Daven Mincha. There's no sign of any necessity of Mechila. That's what he means. That's the shot that there can be a certain interrelation, but even that's not Mahusi. No, that's by the people who know how to do it. That's that's small fry. It's somebody's pashtus. Anyway, Moshiach now taking me out mamish. Unfortunately, what they're doing now is always pashtus.